Hello everyone and welcome back to the Haunted Mario podcast. We're very happy that you joined us today for our 7th episode of the Haunted Mario podcast. A lot of exciting things to talk about in this episode. But before we get to the topics of the episode, I do want to touch bases on one important thing that did happen yesterday. As most of you know in the paranormal community, Debbie and Mark Constantino are no longer with us. Now, they were EVP experts in the paranormal field, best known for their guest appearances on Ghost Adventures. They did a lot of different investigations with the GAC crew, so most of you know them from that, but they did a lot of events, paranormal events and Paracon events in which they participated in investigations as well, and also divulged their knowledge on EVPs and such. Very tragic loss. I won't get into the details of it, but rest in peace. Everyone involved is hurting a lot, so I do want to, at least out of respect, just take a moment of silence for a few moments and pay your respects to Debbie, Constantino, Mark Constantino, and the third victim that was lost yesterday. Again, regardless of what your opinions are and what the facts are behind it, 3 people are now dead and no longer with us, but out of respect, we're going to take a moment of silence, and here we go. Thank you everyone for joining in that moment of silence. A very tragic loss, very deeply saddened by it. I know a lot of people who knew Debbie and Mark Constantino closely, as well as people that have worked with them. Myself and my wife, we did investigate with Debbie Constantino at a Paracon event at the Glen Tavern Inn. It was actually our first time at the Glen Tavern Inn. She was a very, very nice woman, very respectful. I don't have anything negative to say about her at all. Very pleasant experience and a very eye-opening night that we had at the Glen Tavern Inn. So I thank her for those memories and for all the memories on Ghost Adventures. And, may they all rest in peace now. Okay, so let's get into the topics we're going to discuss today on the Haunted Mario podcast. Really quick, I do want to thank you all for your support on our Facebook page, as well as the subscribers that we've picked up on the YouTube channel. We do have a lot of events coming up that I will talk about later in the podcast. But what I wanted to touch bases on today is haunted objects and what they are, and what happens as a result of objects being haunted. I'm also going to discuss a rather interesting topic. It's about cemetery lights. Now, these are very similar to orbs, but we'll get into that here in just a moment. So those are the 2 topics that I'll be discussing, and then I'll give you all an update on the events that we will be participating in starting this weekend up until November. Okay, so let's dive right in. The first topic we're going to be talking about is the notion of cemetery lights. It's pretty self-explanatory what they are. It's lights that you see or observe over a cemetery or graves at a cemetery or graveyards. It's kind of a weird subject because on the one hand you have the 100% skeptics that would look at phenomenon like cemetery lights and just completely discount it as a reflection from a flashlight, passing car lights. Could be insects. It could just be light reflecting off the surface of another object that just shows up in that area. Very interesting ways of debunking cemetery lights in general. And then you have on the other side of the spectrum the full-on believers that are so diehard in just labeling it as paranormal phenomenon, when in actuality, in my opinion, cemetery lights, at least in most cases, can be explained away. I tend to lean more towards the skeptic side in regards to lights or orbs. There's too much that can replicate that type of experience for it to be considered paranormal, with the possibility of things or paranormal activity being replicated by logical means. A lot of it tends to kind of be thrown out the window as far as credibility. Now, that is not to say that cemetery lights are a phenomenon that do not exist at all, or that there is no validity to them. I do believe that there might be some form of paranormal occurrence in which a spirit energy can permeate over a gravesite or within a cemetery and culminate into this paranormal experience of a person seeing a spectral light traveling through. It's a very weird phenomenon, and both sides of the divided spectrum tend to argue both ways quite vigorously. Me personally, I've never seen lights over a cemetery, but then again, I have not yet investigated too many cemeteries, so I can't speak too much on the validity of those claims. I have seen a lot of video footage and a lot of visual evidence of purported cemetery lights, and I don't know, a lot of them I think can be explained away. Some of them are unexplained, but you kind of have to know the circumstances behind it. What a cemetery light is basically an orb of light purported to be spiritual energy of a deceased individual or individuals that may permeate and travel along a cemetery or a gravesite or a graveyard. Now, in some myths, it's believed that some cemetery lights are not spirit energy of a deceased person, but rather a guiding light from, let's say, an angel or some other divine being that is guiding a spirit into the afterlife. I find that theory very mythical, although one would like to think that something like that does exist. If there is an uncertainty in the afterlife after you pass on, where does the spirit go? How does the spirit end up where they are after passing? It would make sense, at least to me, that some sort of guiding light would show them the way. Another theory behind it is that cemetery lights are a phenomenon, a physical phenomenon caused by moisture in the air, and just basically light reflecting on it, whether it be from a physical source like a flashlight, passing cars, or something like moonlight reflecting off moisture in the air. And you'll see that type of occurrence happen a lot within grave sites that tend to get a lot of fog or mist. Light will reflect off the drops of water, the moisture in the air, and create this sort of illuminated ball of light. On the side of the spectrum of skeptics, there's also a theory that it could be fireflies. There are a lot of different explanations for it. I have not yet personally experienced it, but to say that they don't exist, at least from where I am now in the paranormal world, I can't refute every piece of evidence, but until I experience it for myself, I can only label it as an unsolved or unknown piece of paranormal activity or physical abnormal activity. So that's just my opinion on it. And I do want to thank Vivian. She's a fellow paranormal investigator that we met at the USS Hornet. And she was the one that brought up the topic to me. And I do appreciate that submission. So it's a very interesting thing to talk about. Now, sometimes, in some cases, I know that there are moments where these spectral lights lead a person to a certain gravesite, and then that person will then conduct an EVP session or some sort of other investigative means of communicating with a person that's passed on. Perhaps the person knows that gravesite, maybe a family member, and they get results. There's a wave of paranormal activity that increases after an event such as a spectral light. In other cases, I've heard and have read that these lights direct you to clues to maybe attempt to solve the mystery of their passing or why they died. So there's a lot that goes into that, and a lot yet that I don't know. But for now, I just kind of have to throw it up in the air as far as what I've experienced with it, and to date, I haven't experienced anything. I will say that at only one time ever have I experienced a spirit orb, or what I would consider to be a legitimate spirit orb. And that was actually at the Glen Tavern Inn in room 307 on the very first investigation that we conducted there. Again, taking it back to memory with Debbie Constantino. Now, we were all jam-packed into room 307, and I recall that the closet door was open just slightly, and we were conducting an EVP session in the dark. And I recall looking over at the closet door of the Glen Tavern Inn and seeing this softball-shaped, opaque but pulsating orb of light kind of fly in front of the closet door, at which time the closet door slightly turned inward as if it were trying to close. Now, there was no one near the closet door, nor was there anyone in the closet itself. Whether that was true paranormal activity, I'm still unclear, but I can't deny that what I saw with my own eyes was definitely a spirit orb. It was very opaque. You could see right through the actual ball of light. It wasn't bright. When I say opaque, it was very dim, but it did sort of have this weird pulsating light that came out of it. It's very hard to explain. And it also had this weird entrail, almost like very light ectoplasm, but I don't want to classify it as ectoplasm. It just seemed like its own trail of light as it moved across in front of the closet door. Now, that was a very great paranormal, personal paranormal experience that we had there. Unfortunately, there's no evidence to back it up, and I was the only one in that room to see that happen. Everyone else was focused on Debbie and the EVP sessions that we were doing, so not much focus was taken to the actual closet door. But it was a very quick glance over to the door. It happened. I exclaimed out loud to everyone what had happened, and unfortunately no one saw it. So great personal experience of my own that I'll never forget. So thank you, Debbie Constantino, for that memory. Alright, well, that basically does it for cemetery lights. So we're going to move on to our next topic, which is haunted objects, or haunted objects that lead to haunted locations. So let's just dive right into that right now. Now, as far as haunted objects are concerned, most of you in the paranormal world know that some objects, especially personal belongings of a deceased person, can become haunted. The object itself is engulfed or taken over, possessed, whatever you want to call it, by the entity or the spirit of a deceased person. In some cases, it has been claimed that demonic entities, or even in some cases angelic entities, have possessed a object, bringing forth negative or positive implications as a result of that haunting. These type of hauntings are, in my observance, not rare, but not too common. Probably the most famous of these cases is the Annabelle Doll. As most of you know, the Annabelle Doll is a doll that was demonically possessed and was eventually exorcised from the house by Edward and Lorraine Warren. And it's a very famous paranormal case, probably one of the most well-known cases and well-documented cases of paranormal activity and a haunted object, the result of which led to all types of poltergeist activity, and even demonic oppression and possession. But haunted objects, in a nutshell, are just objects that are taken over, possessed by the spirit of a deceased person, or the positive or negative energy of a deceased person. And let's just touch bases on the case with the Annabelle Doll and Ed and Lorraine Warren, and the importance of that case to what would culminate into the future of paranormal research and investigative techniques. Now, before that case, the paranormal world was not as active, I guess would be the proper term. Most claims of paranormal activity were frowned upon, and that was a result of the spiritualist movement back in the 20s and 30s, where it was determined that a lot of the purported paranormal occurrences, such as ectoplasm and mediumship, were fraudulent. So, fast forward to the Ed and Lorraine Annabelle case, and you get a very scientific and a very well-documented case that would bring validity to the paranormal field. So what they did in that case has had ramifications that have spread all the way up until now, and the way that some teams and some individuals investigate. Now, we have a lot more updated technology, but the roots of what I would consider proper paranormal investigating started with Ed and Lorraine Warren. So, a big thank you to them for pioneering this revolution of paranormal enlightenment, per se. But haunted objects, let's get back to that in general. Haunted objects, it's weird how these claims come to be, in that some are random, where a person will go to an antique store, or they'll go to a garage sale, or they will inherit some sort of a ring, or a photo album, or a clock, or a lamp, and and so on. And this object what will seemingly be normal in the beginning. The person or persons that own the object will, put it in their home, put it in their office, wherever it is that they might store the object or display the object. What will start out as a normal day-by-day thing of them living their lives turns into this sort of wave of paranormal activity. Now, some things start out as subtle, hearing noises or hearing voices. An object will have moved from one place to another, or the haunted object itself will have changed positions. It will have moved from one room to another, or from one level of the house to another level. The object itself will give off this energy, positive or negative, to a person that might be around it, changing their behavior or making them feel ill, or even making them feel energetic. A lot of these haunted object claims start out with the person not knowing the history behind the object, so they bring it into their home, and then out of nowhere they start experiencing all this activity. Haunted objects are most commonly haunted by the spirit of a deceased family member. Perhaps a part of their spiritual energy has latched onto the object, maybe as a way of keeping their presence around to the next of kin or the next family member that might take possession of the object itself. In some other cases, the more negative cases, it's a demonic entity that has injected its spiritual essence or negative energy into the object itself, sort of as a vessel to go from one place to another. And when it's at its destination, whoever owns the object is then succumb to very negative paranormal activity, poltergeist activity, and even oppression and possession, of course. So that cases like the Annabelle doll, where the family was afflicted by demonic activity and eventually possession, those extreme cases are rare, but there have been multiple cases over the past that have dealt with such things. So haunted objects are a crazy thing. To really think about an object itself that you could bring in to your home not knowing that it could possess the energy of a spirit, good or bad, is quite it dives into that sort of outer limits expectation of not wanting to bring something unwanted into your home. Very crazy thing to deal with, and most cases with haunted objects normally end in exorcisms, or the person will abandon the object or get rid of it in one means or another. Some people can't take that type of paranormal activity occurring over and over again, whether it be good or bad. Some people like their private space and to feel that their home, their domain, is safe. Not to say that positive energy from a haunted object is a bad thing, but some people don't like to believe that type of thing exists. Primarily the skeptics, of course. Myself, I've never run into a haunted object, but I guess a haunted object would be listed most commonly as a residual type of haunt, whereas you get the interactive type of haunted objects where you have intelligent haunts. So a wide spectrum of different types of paranormal activity that can occur. But haunted objects are, from what I understand, a very real thing. And if you're at an antique store or a garage sale, you're inclined to, in most cases, if you're going to buy an old item or an old antique, to perhaps ask about some of the history behind the object itself before you bring it into your home. Now, I've known that some people who do buy antiques do take their objects to perhaps a priest, and they'll have the object blessed, so as not to bring anything in their home that may be possessed by an entity. And then there are those people out there that outwardly look for haunted objects for their own collection. They collect these type of things and store them and display them for others to see. So what can we take away from this? Basically, we can take away that be careful of what you buy. But haunted objects, although most known for their negative activity, there are some out there that are claimed to have positive energy, and objects that bring luck to a person that might believe that an object is affecting the outcome of certain things, whether it be a job interview or finding money on the street, or maybe a promotion, those type of objects, that superstition behind it that brings good luck to a person. So that's another form of a haunted object. But I do want to thank a Haunted Mario user. Her name is Kristen, for bringing up this topic. And it's a very interesting topic, and one that I didn't really think about touching bases on was haunted objects. But when you look at the history behind them, there's a plethora of cases out there that you can look up on the internet and get more information on. So again, thank you, Kristen, for bringing that subject up. It was a very interesting topic. So let's now talk about some of the events that are coming up for the Haunted Mario team in the next 5 weeks. Now, the first event that we'll be doing is a Graver Olive House investigation. Now, those that have checked out the website, you know that the Graver Olive House is where our spiritual journey began in regards to the paranormal field. We've investigated there 5 times on previous occasions, and each time have come back with some pretty awesome EVP evidence. So we'll be returning for our 6th time to that location for an investigation. So Graver Olive House is located in Ontario, California. If you're interested, it is this Saturday on the 26th of September. The admission fee is $25, and I'm not sure if it's a full overnight investigation, but I do know that it is an evening investigation, and the group of Darklands Paranormal will be hosting that event. So if you're in the area, or if you're interested in a ghost hunt to kick off your Halloween season, that's a perfect place to start. And feel free to come by and talk to us, myself and my wife. And also of important note is that very weekend there's supposed to be a blood moon eclipse. So that is a very interesting phenomenon that will occur. Natural phenomenon, of course, but something astrological like that occurring on the eve of an investigation tends to kick up a lot of paranormal activity. So that's a very interesting thing that will be going on. So the following week we will be doing a Sugar Skull workshop at the Waffle Mansion, and that is in downtown Santa Ana. If you're familiar with Ghost Adventures, you will know that they have investigated the Waffle Mansion and come back with some pretty awesome evidence. We have investigated the how Waffle Mansion on 3 separate occasions, and we have also come back with some pretty substantial evidence from those investigations. So if you're interested in having a day of learning about Day of the Dead, the history behind it, the mythos behind Day of the Dead, and creating your own sugar skull, there will be food and music there as well. And I believe there may be some guided tours of the Haunted Mansion as well. If you want more information on that, you can go to the hauntedOC.com website. It's the team that I belong to. You can go there for more information. I believe that tickets are still on sale. If not, the event is already sold out. But in any case, we will be at that event. So if you're there, feel free to stop by and say hello. Okay, also on that very same day, we will also be going to the Halloween market. That's brought on by Abracadaver Productions, and that will be in Fullerton, California. Both of these events, of course, occurring on October 3rd. The Sugar Skull Workshop will start at 11 a.m. and go on until about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And the Halloween market will start at 10 a.m. going on until 5 p.m. If you're in the Orange County area or the Riverside area or even the LA County area and you're interested in attending either of these events, we will be at both. So we will be at the Sugar Skull Workshop first, and then we'll be heading to the Halloween market and perusing the vendors that are there. Halloween is a very big time of year for Haunted Mario, Haunted Orange County. Myself and my wife, this is our favorite time of year, so this is where we will be the most active out there as far as paranormal and Halloween events. So if you're interested, those 2 activities will be at for both of them. Alright, so let's flash forward to the 24th and 25th of October. Now this is an event that is not paranormal in nature at all. But those that are interested in rock and metal music, you can find us at the Knotfest Music Festival. That will be headlined by Judas Priest, Korn, Slipknot, and other bands as well. So if you're going to that event, we will be there both on Saturday and Sunday, October 24th and 25th. So if you're in the area and you see us, feel free to say hi. We can hang out at the event and listen to some awesome rock and metal music. The following weekend is going to be very busy, but we're going to essentially have a lot of fun that weekend. So what we have for Haunted OC just announced is a return to the Heritage Square Museum. Now this event is going to be on Friday, October 30th, and it will be after the Kamikaze Expo, which Haunted OC will have a panel at with team members such as Ben Hansen from Sci-Fi's Factor Fate. So if you're going to Stan Lee's Kamikaze Expo, go ahead and stop by the Haunted Orange section, and those that are there from the team will be more than happy to discuss the paranormal with you. So Friday, October 30th will be an investigation after that day of Kamikaze, and we will be investigating the Heritage Square Museum. So I will be there. The lead investigators of that event will be fellow investigator Don Staggs, Ben Hansen of Sci-Fi's Factor Fake, Susan Slaughter of Ghost Hunters International, and Kristen Lumen from Ghost Mind. So if you're interested in that event, we have some pretty awesome featured lead investigators, and we'll be happy to have you guys join us on that. If you want more info on that, tickets are now available at hauntedoc.com. Okay, so that pretty much does it for the month of October. I will be doing some pretty awesome features for Creature Feature for October. In light of the return of the Walking Dead, we're going to be doing a Creature Feature on zombies, so that should be interesting. I'll also be doing a special podcast talking about monsters in general. So that will be a very cool event coming up in October. So keep an eye out for that. Just check back on the website or on the Facebook page for updates on when that podcast will be up. So a lot of cool things happening. In November, the first weekend of November, there is an event at the Ride Hotel, a paranormal investigation in Northern California at the Ride Hotel. It's questionable right now whether we will be attending that, but I will keep it posted on the Facebook page and let you all know as soon as we have that confirmed. So a lot of cool events happening, and keep up on the Facebook page. If you haven't already, give it a like. Check out the YouTube channel and subscribe to that. There's a lot of evidence that I have posted on there, as well as visual versions of these podcasts that you can play on YouTube directly. Other than that, that pretty much covers it. I do want to thank you all for your continued support. I enjoy doing these podcasts, so thank you again for listening, and that does it for episode 7. Thank you again for allowing me to bring you some insight into all things paranormal, and as always, happy haunting.